From Joe's storyline with his son Henry, to all of Joe's story arcs from all 4 previous seasons ending. These are the biggest stories You Season 5 needs to tie up.
I want you to know, if I wasn't about to be late to see you, I would beat this guy bloody for the way he talks about you.
You's 4th season ended with a bang and a return to Joe Goldberg's Season 1 roots. That's right, by the end of the drama's rather insane Season 4, Joe returns back to New York City, the place where all this drama first began in Season 1. But now, Joe has a very rich girlfriend by his side. He's considered a public figure because of his relationship with her, and has a whole new life that could give him everything he's always wanted. That is, if he doesn't screw it up as a result of his murderous ways. For the first time, Joe has a lot to lose, and there's a general feeling in the air that he's gonna lose it all. As Netflix has renewed You for a 5th and final season, there are a few huge storylines that need to be tied up, beginning with where Joe's son Henry is. At the end of Season 3, after Joe faked his own death and murdered Love, he gave his son Henry to his 2 friends, Dante and Lansing, as he knew that they wanted kids. While Joe initially wanted to take his son with him as he fled after Love's murder, he knew that this wouldn't be right. After all, Joe does know that he's a murderer. At least he has this slight awareness going for him. At the time, he knew that he couldn't raise his son on the run with his murderous ways, so it was easier to leave him behind. It was also the right thing to do. And when does Joe ever do the right thing? Season 4 saw Joe head across the pond to England, where he pretended to be a professor named Jonathan Moore.
Explain Pence to the American, please.
On what love is, all right?
Wharton were wrong. The ones who assign those writers are lazy, and this is my class. It's the accent, isn't it?
His killing of innocents continued, and he even developed a murderous new personality as a result. But at the end of the 4th season, it appeared Joe would, once again, get away with everything he's done. He's back in New York, is back as Joe Goldberg, and is living life to the fullest. His new girlfriend Kate has helped him return as Joe, freshly back from the dead, knowing that he killed Love. But even though Joe is back as himself and in New York City, and even though he has a ton of resources and money, there was no mention of Henry at the end of the season. In Season 5, this storyline needs to be resolved. We need to learn what happened to his son. Will Joe go out of his way to try to get his son back? Will he make an effort to at least appear as if he wants to reunite with his son, to keep the public happy now that he's such a public figure? Or will Joe continue to realize that he cannot be a father as he is a serial killer? Joe has many flaws. Being a sadistic killer is just one of them. However, he is aware that he can't be a good father to Henry. It will be interesting to see where this storyline goes in the 5th season. But Henry's story should come to an end and be wrapped up nicely in some way. Just as Joe's Season 3 arc with Henry needs to be tied up, so do all of the many storylines that occurred in Season 4. Possibly the most important is Marion's story arc. Marion managed to escape with her life in the 4th season, but Joe thinks that she's dead. In Season 5, will he find out that she's in fact alive, or will he continue to think he killed her? As Marion obviously knows what Joe is capable of, what will she do in the 5th season? Will she work to bring him down? Fans need to see what becomes of Marion, as she really could be the one to fully bring Joe Goldberg down once and for all. It would be a shame if the final season didn't feature her in a major role. After all, she's one of his only remaining victims, though there are others who know what he's capable of, and the 5th season of You also needs to tie up all of their loose ends. First off, we've got Jenna Ortega's character Ellie. Ortega was supposed to appear in the 4th season of the show, but scheduling conflicts got in the way. Now that Ortega has had a huge surge in fame thanks to her role in Wednesday, it might be even harder to get her to be a part of the 5th season of You. However, I'm hoping that Ellie will return and that her story will come to a close as a result. Fans should also see Love's father's storyline tie up nicely in some way. After all, Love's dad knew that Joe was responsible for his daughter's death, and he thought he paid someone to kill Joe. As Joe is now in New York City living the high life, Love's father will surely want answers to everything, and audiences would definitely like to see this play out. Nadia is yet another character who knows what Joe is capable of, as Joe framed her for his murders. Nadia knows the truth about Joe and how he's a serial killer, yet we don't see her open up about this at the end of the the 4th season. Therefore, in season 5, we need to see Nadia try to hold Joe accountable. If we get to see Nadia and Marion team up to take him down, that would be lovely. Again, here's to hoping that the writers don't just forget about Nadia, as her story arc definitely deserves some sort of satisfying ending. And then there's Kate, Joe's new girlfriend. Just what does Kate know about Joe? At the end of the 4th season, it's hard to tell. She knows that Joe is a murderer, but she then managed to work around a story that Joe only killed Love because she was abusive. Does she know about all the murders he's committed? How terrible he is? If she does. And if we learn that she knows everything and continues to be with him, then Joe may have finally met the one for him. But that doesn't mean that Joe is going to be satisfied. After all, this is a serial killer we're talking about. Joe has always been uncontrollable, which is what has made these last 4 seasons of You so riveting to watch. Therefore, in season 5, we need to see more of Joe back in New York City and see how his season 2, 3, and 4 character arcs have been influenced by his season 1 arc. It would be nice to see more of his mother, who lives in New York City. His trauma and his murderous rage all stem from his childhood, as the 5th season will be the last. It would be fitting to have Joe and his mother have at least some sort of ending. Season 1's storylines should also come into play in season 5. After all, Joe did murder Beck in the city in the 1st season. It would also be nice to see this become a storyline again in any way possible. For example, will we get flashbacks of Joe and Beck?
Hello. Do you work here?
Guilty. Can I help you find something?
Paula Fox?
It's a good choice.
I feel weirdly validated.
Will he think of her or what he did to her at all? Of course, we can't forget everything Joe went through in the 4th season just because he's back in New York City. His dark side, portrayed by the character Rise, makes a brief appearance at the end of season 4. As Joe is looking out a window, you can see Rise looking back at him in the reflection. So it would be nice to see more about why Joe created this alter ego to kill multiple people in the first half of the 4th season. Joe understands that he did this, that Rise is him, but it's clear that he isn't rid of this even darker side of himself yet. So exploring this in the Big Apple, the place where our story began, is indeed fitting. Joe's story is going to come to an end in the 5th season. If the story takes place exclusively in New York City, then Joe's end, whatever that may be, will come to an end where it all started in a full circle moment. So whether Joe dies, whether he's caught and imprisoned for his many crimes, or whether he gets away with it all, there's something special about it all ending where it began. So from seeing all of Joe's storylines come to a close, to a satisfying conclusion with Joe and Henry's arc, these were the biggest stories You Season 5 needs to tie up.